Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Mindful Ear. Wow, this is exciting. 3 reviews within just a couple weeks of each other. I am so incredibly happy to be back at the game and bringing you all high quality and trustworthy impressions of the myriad of gadgets and toys in our shared hobby. Now, if you haven't done so already, please click like and subscribe real quick so we can move along and talk about today's headphone review. The Hifiman Deva Pro planar magnetic open-backed headphone that features an unusual but surprising accessory, the Bluemini R2R DAC Bluetooth module. So without further ado, let's dive into these guys. So, out of the box, they're clearly Hifiman in design, with very simple yokes. It's got their classic slider adjustment on there. Very, very simple, clean design in language that spans their entire product line. They all pretty much look the same in some form or fashion. Not saying that that's a bad thing. It's good for a company to have consistent design language, but this looks a lot like other headphones like the 4XX and a few others that I've had the pleasure of trying in the past. Now, briefly, some other Hifiman headphones that I've had the chance to listen to previous to the Deva Pro include the HE4XX, which I actually still own, and I've done things like swap pads on it and change the filters in it and alter the sound, but it's very, very much inexpensive Hifiman planar magnetic sound. Treble's not quite right, neither is the mid-range. Now, something like the Deva Pro is a substantial step up from something like the 4XX or the X4 even, I would say. I've also heard the Anadas. Those are very, very good. The Edition X's are pretty dang good as well. These sit somewhere underneath the Edition X and Anadas in terms of the resolution and the texture that they provide, but we're also talking about a substantially cheaper headphone too. And I've also had the chance to listen to the Hifiman J2 electrostatic headphones with its monstrosity of an amplifier, and, well, that was just a completely different experience entirely. Staying on topic, though, talking about these guys, got left and right markings pretty clear on the inside of each of the headbands. You've got a fair amount of extensibility within the headband, so if you've got a really big noggin, you should be good there. The headband is pleather. It seems like it's reasonably good quality. However, I think over extended use, this is going to wear out relatively quickly. And the same goes for the ear patch, which are generic in every aspect as well, and something I don't like about these headphones. I think if they had put a little bit more time into either developing an ear pad specific to these, or assuming that these are not specific ear pads for these, that they just grab one of their other ones, they don't seal as well as they should. They don't give you the kind of sound that they should. Because on the inside lining, even though there is lore, it doesn't help reflect the sound that much, which is unfortunate. Overall, they seem fairly robust in construction, about average, I'd say. Doing this back and forth, I wouldn't do it a whole bunch. I would be definitely concerned about this right here being your failure point, as this right here is metal, but after a while will fatigue and break. As for how they fit on your head, they're pretty comfortable. They're really, really light. I can actually get a good seal with glasses on, which, very, very important. Looking at them from the side, they are traditional Hifiman, huge, giant circles on the side of your head, but not necessarily a bad thing. Input and output on them. So if you're using the stock 3.5 millimeter single-ended cable, you've got left and right inputs on the bottom here. Now, if you're using this little piece of wizardry, the Bluemini R2R DAC Bluetooth module, it only inserts onto the left side, and just like that. And it'll actually tell you, it actually says specifically right here, 3.5 millimeter TRRS. That's where this guy's going to go in every time. It'll never go in on the right, always goes in on the left according to the manual. With the Bluemini module attached, you can't notice the weight difference. You literally cannot. That's how light this little guy is, which is really awesome because I used this a few times going out and about while shopping. Cranked up the volume a little bit to drown out everybody else, but I actually was able to take a couple calls using this, and the audio quality was pretty clear. The noise cancellation on the microphone worked well, and the person on the other end of the line didn't really notice that I was in a store, so kudos to Hifiman on some of the engineering right there. And we're going to talk more about the special little DAC as we progress. So, pairing things up. The first pairing that I did was just running it single-ended off my iFi IDSD Diablo reference portable DAC on turbo gain. These headphones are power hungry. They do perform better with the more wattage you give them. Keep that in mind if you're looking at buying these and you're going to have a desktop source for them. To really max them out, you want to make sure you got some good power on tap. Micro and macro details with this combination were excellent. Very, very good. Didn't have much to complain about there. The treble is pretty well controlled overall and is not harsh, but it does have intensity to it, which is something that is common to planar magnetic headphones generally, but the iFi Diablo is also very clinical and neutral and can give a pretty sharp edge to treble if a headphone already accentuates treble to begin with. The stage had about moderate 3D space, not all that great for an open back headphone, but still better than a closed back headphone, thankfully. The bass was really good. It was well articulated, very fast, very, very, very well textured and are just really good sounding, except for having pressure and slam. You could hear all the bass notes going really fast when they came on strong, but when they came on strong, they did not grip you the way that bass is supposed to grip you. And this is something that I've noticed is common to Hifiman tuning, is that the bass doesn't get a whole lot of attention, not in terms of it reaching out and touching you the way that bass is supposed to. Now, even bass-heavy songs such as Gori by Alina Pash, they've got some slam and pressure, but it's good you're listening to music that's got shit cranked up to begin with, man. And the bass impact is just not there. It's not what it should be, unfortunately. Now, the tonality, thankfully, with this combination, Diablo plus the Deva Pros off the cable, is accurate across the frequency response range, which is perhaps the single most important thing when you are pairing a planar magnetic headphone with any amp or source, is you want your frequency response to be accurate, because planars can have a little bit of weirdness in that upper mid-range and treble, like a lot of us know about already. So, Diablo plus Deva Pro, totally accurate pairing. Lean on the bass, otherwise, not too bad. Now, throwing in the Bluemini R2R DAC module, this little guy right here. It's got a sticker on the back with all the little FCC certification symbols and all that fun stuff. But this has a in-house developed Himalaya resistor-to-resistor R2R digital to analog converter chip in it. This is something Hifiman did themselves, and this is the first time I've heard an R2R DAC before. And it kind of caught me by surprise because the entire character of the sound on these things changed, which is something I should expect from a different DAC and amp pairing, of course, but it was really, really surprising in how different it was. It's a little bit warmer than the Diablo pairing. Go figure, R2R is supposed to be warmer in general. It was slightly crisper in the upper treble, which was really surprising because the Diablo was crisp to begin with. What really started to improve was layering front to back. Male vocals suddenly became very, very natural, and they had some body to them that wasn't apparent with the Diablo pairing because of the leanness of the Diablo. The general texture of all the notes that you were hearing, especially in the micro details, just got better. It's like, oh, I can not only understand that that's a hi-hat cymbal getting hit, I know where it is, and I know what direction the splash of that sound is coming from. Like, holy smokes, that's pretty cool. And it's got me thinking, did I just become a fan of R2R DACs? Granted that this is a very unique one-off implementation of an R2R DAC, but it's got me thinking that perhaps down the line, I need to look at some R2R DACs in my headphone setup, as well as potentially in my stereo setup, so that will be a lot of fun coming in for later reviews. Some examples of how much I like this DAC and some of the effects that it had. In the piano opening segment on Walk on Water with Slander Morning and Dylan Matthew, it's so natural, and it has proper note heft, which is maintained throughout the song. Oftentimes piano, especially if it's synthesized piano, it doesn't have that thump and bloom and sustain and decay that a piano note is supposed to have. The single best reproduction of piano that I have ever heard was on a $200,000 plus Wimberg Amaya D bass system with a Karen Class A amp. Like, that was insane. But we're talking about a $250,000 system right there. This pairing was accurate with piano, and that is scary good because I grew up playing piano. My dad was exceptionally good at piano himself. You know, I used to write music on piano and do vocals and stuff, and this was really, really, really good. Like, even because you could tell that even when the notes were played piano or pianissimo compared to being played moderante or forte, to use the Italian language for very soft, moderate, and loud, you can tell the difference, and that is so key. That dynamic range and hearing those details, the differences between one note being played over and over again, progressively louder, and maintaining that kind of detail throughout the song, that's a big deal. The accelerating percussion, same song, Walk on Water, that occurs halfway through the song is just spot on. Great speed, great color and articulation to it. It was just, wow, so much fun. The other song I mentioned earlier, Oniagori by Alina Pash, has more bass texture and heft to it than with the Diablo. That was like, whoa, that got cool. It actually got a lot more pleasant to listen to. Airplane by Petit Miller was just fun. Like, I stopped critically listening about 30 seconds in. I just enjoyed myself, which speaks a lot to how well this little guy and these guys pair together. They're made for each other, and it's done very, very well. Now, Hero by the Nicky Romero remix, absolutely humongous stage on it. However, sometimes female vocals can have a tiny edge to them, especially if you're listening to something that is on the more compressed side or it's bad mastering. It's like Brick Wall to Hell or something like that. Tiny little bit of sharpness, but nothing truly offensive. Nothing that I would really truly qualify as sibilance. Now, the final test that I did with the Deva Pros was hook them up to the Shangling UA5 portable Bluetooth DAC amplifier that I have. It's put away somewhere at the moment. It's hiding. Otherwise, it's about that big. Tic-Tac container size thing. I ran it in single-ended mode using its hybrid filter on high gain, excuse me, feeding it USB from my MacBook Pro. Now, with the UA5, I had to turn it up to 70% to get ample volume. Again, running single-ended. I didn't have a balanced cable to use with the Deva Pros, or else that's what I would have done. What I really liked about the pairing, though, was it had a precisely fine and detailed treble with zero sibilance. Best treble pairing out of all three setups so far. Had a really wide and deep stage with a great sense of air and lightning fast transients. So right off the bat, this is a really great DAC and amp pairing for the Deva Pros. The bass weight is still slightly on the polite side. It's not that that we like, that we get from dynamic drivers, but it still has some emotion to it. It's agile. A great example of this is All Through the Night by Jules, and it's projected forward in the stage, and it's layered appropriately. And an example of this kind of layering of the bass elements along with mid-range elements is Rip and Tear by Mick Gordon off the Doom 2016 original soundtrack. Colors by Neon Hitch is just way too subdued and polite with this pairing, which is sad because that's a very, very energetic, upbeat, and happy song, but it just a little bit polite. I'm sure I could have played with the DAC filter some, but that just would have gotten horrendously granular, and we would have been droning on for another 20 minutes, and that's not fun. The bass impact and presentation, though, seemed highly dependent upon the song, which leads me to believe, and this is something that I've noticed across other audio gear that I've tested, is that when we have these kinds of differences, it's usually due not to the gear, but to the track mastering, how that song was engineered and produced and designed to sound. Some of them, like Breaking Benjamin's a great example of having percussion pushed forward in the mix. EDM is a great genre example of having bass and treble pushed forward in the mix, and some of the upper mid-range for synth loops, things like that. Overall, though, the Shangling UA5, very great, exceptional tonality and texture, and I would say with a balanced cable would make a really great pairing with the Deva Pros if you wanted to play around and have something different to listen to other than the Bluemini R2R. So, end of the day, do I recommend these? If you like planar magnetic sound, go for it. If you like planar magnetic sound plus a really, really cool Bluetooth R2R DAC and amp that doesn't add any weight, and that sounds really stinking good, run and buy this, because at the price point, it's a pretty good deal. Because it's not just the headphone you're buying a full-blown, high-resolution DAC and amp that was designed in-house by Hifiman for this headphone. And it is with that I give my stamp of CO recommendation. The Mindful Ear approves. Good for them, otherwise we would have been, woo! No, I don't throw headphones, ever. Not even when I really dislike them, I promise. So, that wraps things up. Another review here on the Mindful Ear Audio Review channel, and another great fun experience reviewing the Hifiman Deva Pros, courtesy of Hifiman directly. I want to thank Hifiman for allowing me to review these, and I also want to thank my colleague William Murdoch, who was my point of contact to Hifiman. If you look him up and check his channel out on YouTube, he's got even more reviews than I do, and he does a superb job with them as well. Thank you all, happy listening, and remember, mind the ear.